Stakes racing continues. This time we're going to the Black Gold 5 in Louisiana. A mandatory payout today, and we're going to handicap this on a Saturday morning as we're getting ready for the races to be run later on today. This will be the start of a series of betting videos on some of the bigger race cards if racing ever gets back into full swing again, where we take a look at how you can handicap and maybe attack some of these multi-race wagers with a little bit different slant than the general public. I'm a firm believer in having what I call separator horses, horses that not everybody will have on their ticket. Sometimes those horses will be favorites that are not being bet proportionally to their chances of winning. I also like to separate the public horses. Those are horses that are getting all the publicity, all the headline, but when you actually dig down into it, they're underlays in some of their respective races. Then I also like to have tosses, horses that if they win, I'm out. If they win the race, I'm out of the pick 5, pick 4, pick 3. And then also some key type horses, horses that you have to have an opinion on in a couple of these races. Now, when you're playing a pick 5, the goal here is you probably got to have one race where you have a key. And in the Black Gold 5 sequence, I think the majority of the key horses will be on Finite, who is looking for her 6th straight win. I also think she's a little bit of a public horse here. She comes off an impressive effort the last time out, beating British Idiom and kind of dominating that race. She has a good figure pattern. So on the handicapping wise, she looks tough to beat. So that's probably the key of this sequence. But with the big pot, even with a 3 to 5 favorite winning like that, or 2 to 5 favorite, you can still make a little bit of money. This starts with race sequence number 8, and we'll take a look at how I see this 5-race sequence shaking out and give you some of the opinions as we take a look. And remember, these are really just as you do your handicapping to give you a little bit further hint and kind of see how the public is going to gravitate towards or away some of these different horses. We're going to start with Dream Passage and Altea. I think those are two of the separators in race number 8. I think they have a higher chance of winning than the general public probably thinks. I think Fullness of Life is a horse that you may want to consider. Only one race in North America, but did run in some stronger races in Italy. And I like the fact that she had a long layoff before that last race. I think at 12 to 1, she could definitely be kind of a separator type horse. I think of the 5 races, race number 8 is probably the race that you have to take the biggest spread and use multiple tickets to try to get alive out of that race. Now in the New Orleans Classic, I do have a little bit of an opinion here. I think Fearless is going to be about 4 to 1. That last race, Brisnet speed figure of 107 was an allowance, non-winners of 1, but he dominated that race. He's lightly raced. He has the pedigree. Some good recent workouts, and really this is a race they've been pointing for. I think Fearless is a type of horse that after the race could dominate this race, and you're going to say, oh boy, that horse could have been even money or 7 to 5. I think you're going to get 3 to 1 because it's still kind of a little bit of an unknown on Fearless coming into this race, and there hasn't been a lot of hype on a horse like that. I think a toss horse for me is Silver Dust. I think he's kind of peaked, and he's ran 4 good races in a row, but he's kind of plateaued in that 98, 99 Brisnet speed figure range. I think another horse that's going to be bet down a little bit off his morning line, but is definitely a separator horse, is By My Standard. So the way I'm going to play it is By My Standard and Fearless are probably the 2 key horses that I'm going to have on about 90% of my tickets. A horse that I'm going to toss is a horse like Gunnet. I want nothing to do with that 6 to 1 morning line, and I think he's a little over bet. The Muniz Memorial Classic, I think some separators are Aquafobio and a horse like Rock Emperor. I think they're both capable of improving. I think they're both going to be bet down off their morning lines. I think Captivating Moon is definitely a horse to use, and also Henley's Joy can definitely be used on some different tickets as a separator type horse. A horse that I'm tossing and a public type horse that I'm going to play against is Synchrony. He's got a good Fairgrounds record, but he's 7 years old now, and I thought the last race, Factor This, clearly beat him in that race, and I think there's better horses in this field. Antoinette is probably the only contender that can beat a horse like Finite, and I actually think Antoinette does have a small shot. Now, she's coming off the layoff, but those were impressive races as a 2-year-old, and if you project her Brisnet speed figures forward, you could definitely see her approaching that 95 mark on the scale, but I think Finite's closer to 100. Finite is probably going to be used on 90% of the tickets and probably a key. In the Louisiana Derby, my key horses, I think a fade for me is Modernist. I don't like that post position at all. I'm also going to fade a horse like New York Traffic. I'm not using Lynn's Map at all. And a horse like Sharecropper is a little bit interesting as a separator. I think Chestertown is always going to get bet down because of his $2 million purchase price, but he's just not that good of a horse. My horses are Wells Bayou, Major Fed, and even though I hate to say it, Silver State. I think this is the race he's been cranked up all winter for. I don't like the post position, but I think you'll finally get fair odds at 5-1 in Silver State. That's a look at the Black Gold 5. Make an opinion. Hopefully it counts as you take a look at this big pool on the Black Gold 5 mandatory payout.